or a shroom lift, maybe. And my brother is probably cursing my existence right now after I said that. He probably can feel it. But onto the main video. I have created a Voronoi texture, and I messed around with some of the settings a little bit, creating a specialized texture, which I'm going for a more wooden plank feel, which, looking back on it now, I should have just used a brick texture. I think it would have worked a lot better than this. But I think my brain was thinking more like, oh, natural. So here, I am using a bump map to kind of dig some grooves into it. And I'm mainly just playing around with the tablet here. And this is my first time using it, and I'm obviously having a lot of fun with the pressure sensitivity. Here, I'm just uh, digging some lines that I'm going to erase after I decide on a better method of doing this. I should also mention that this box has one of the worst UV maps I have ever created. I am sorry for anyone who's actually good at Blender. It's awful. And there's a couple issues that come up with the UV map later on, which unfortunately I have to, well, just ignore mostly. Because I'm being very lazy with this. This box will not be a focal point in any scene, so I'm only going to be texturing the front and somewhat of the sides. This is what we call just doing the minimum effort required, because this isn't going to be in a video game, and we won't have players looking literally behind the object. So you can texture what will only be shown to the camera. Here I have fully switched to a mask setting. By painting white onto a black mask, I can only show spots of the texture in specific spots that I want, which is what I do. I think I switched to a line stroke method, and to draw straight lines to kind of give it a plank aesthetic. From the pictures that I used for the reference, they had planks going sideways, I believe. So I wanted to give it more of that kind of feel. Of course, there's going to be a noise texture down the line to give it more of the grain that wood tends to have usually. Here we have me doing a single stroke and just failing miserably, so I immediately go to the line method, which works a lot better. And I wasn't really expecting the line to work with the pressure sensitivity, but it really does, and I figured that out very quickly. Which is just even better with the whole drawing tablet. Probably the best $50 I have ever spent. So I am moving on to creating the planks themselves to give them more of a depth feel. And I will be messing around with that a little bit more to create more of a feel of depth and the fact that it looks like multiple objects combining into one rather than just a plain box. And now I am messing with sliders mostly, trying to create a more natural feel and displacement by just lightly grazing it all with the white mask. I can make only some of the detail of the original Voronoi texture appear outwards, while still maintaining the extreme detailed perspective of the planks that I want. Now I am making the bump map, to which by painting black on a dark map, you push the texture in. By painting white on a bump map, you push the texture out. Now I'll be switching to the line stroke method once more to create like indentation, which would help give the illusion of depth. Obviously, it was too much right there, and the strength and the size of too much, and I messed around with some layer settings there. Honestly, UQ Paint has probably the best. I mean, it's just the best thing I have ever seen for Blender, in my opinion, for texturing. I've watched endless tutorials online about procedural generation of textures. They don't really export well in game engines, and I never really understood them. But I also didn't want to shell out infinite money for Adobe's Substance Painter and material making program. So when I found out about this, I basically just did a backflip in my own room. So it allows you to create some lines like that, which, in my opinion, look good. Once again, this won't be close up or focused on. So it just needs to look okay, not so much great. For animations, I've mostly come to the conclusion from multiple tutorials and, well, tips and tricks that for the things that's going to be up front and focused on, you want to make sure that it's good from the correct perspective and the angle that it's going to be viewed at in general. If it's super close up, you want to make sure it's very detailed. If it's far away, it could just be a splotch basically. And there's many evidence or examples of that, I suppose. Basically, just everywhere in the film industry, actually, whether it's animation or just films itself. So here I'm continuing to create the depth lines, I guess I can call them, and I'm using a little bit of the smear brush, which works a little bit weirdly. I've noticed, but then again, it's a smear brush, not a do what I want it to brush. I'm not really sure how that works, but I go back to it a couple times and do a couple strokes with the darker wood to get the correct feel I want it to, I guess. Lower the strength some more. So far with the drawing tablet, I've noticed that I tend to keep the pressure sense on the strength and not the size. Honestly, the size one is a little bit hard to control just overall. All right. And it looks like now I'm going to begin to add continuously more just detail in the front of it to make it look like planks more. Once more. I do it a lot, and I go back on a lot of decisions on this over and over again, trying to find out what is going to look the best from a certain angle. I look at it a couple times, and the shape and the look of it does seem to come into form pretty well so far. With the noise texture that I am adding now, I'm going to be creating the grain of the wood, because obviously wood has more larger patterns, but it also has the texture of wood that's like kind of just grainy overall. This is supposed to be a slight medieval setting, of course, so uh, it's not going to be perfectly smooth wood that we might see at lumber yards. And even then, I'd still, most of the wood that I've worked with for like decks and stuff, or just a chicken coop, more specifically, ends up just being bumpy overall, even if it is smoother than more natural wood. So I'm going to be messing with the noise texture, and I'm going to have to create the mask to get rid of the noise texture on the latches later. And I think I am going to be working on the latches now, actually. Now, here's something that I really didn't know if it worked properly at all. I turned on the metallic like UQ Paint channel for this specific part, and I was going for a more silver feel. One of the things I'm not too sure about is that I wasn't sure if the metallic was coming through at all. It's not a metallic object fully, but I want some metallic here and there because the latches on this are supposed to be metal. And this is where a UV problem showed up in the latches. As I painted the side, the silverish whitish I was going for, what ended up happening is that a small spot on the side of the box also got painted silver, which you'll see in a second. Right now, I am removing the noise texture, which just makes it look a whole lot better. And you could actually see the sliver of white there for a second. I'll notice it in the video in just a second, which immediately pisses me off to a very large extent because, well, UV maps are hard. And I don't really know how they work fully, but I intend to learn and get a lot better. I know Brawl's UV map flowed very nicely, but then again, I've mostly had a lot of practice with character models and not so much object models because character ones tend to be the more complicated ones. So I focused on them first. And here I am adding the mask to get rid of the splotches of white to make it a more dense, more controlled, like it's actual metal instead of paint on the box. So here I am just cleaning it up a little bit, and I think, yeah, there we go. I removed it, and then I see it, and I kind of instantly knew what was happening. And it was at this point that I kind of just decided that, oh well, I'll come back to it later, which is what that cut was. And over this cut, I decided I'm just going to ignore it. It is good enough, which is exactly what I need from this. So now I will be adding more natural depth scratches of the wood to give it more of a 3D feel. And I cannot express how much I love UQ Paint's systems for doing this. It really does make it so much easier than messing around with the proc shading or like the material nodes in Blender. As strong as they are, I have made some very cool stuff using them, but unfortunately I'm not smart enough to understand most of it, like where it goes, what happens where. There's plenty of tutorials to do lots of stuff with it, but unfortunately, what if I need something specific that the tutorials don't allow me to do and I just can't do it? But I'm going to have to figure them out eventually. Of course, VFX is going to be one of the hardest things to learn for this Brawl animation. And not only that, physics, because I want him to punch some things. His name is Brawl for a reason. You can see the scratches coming into form a lot better now, which already gives it such a more detailed view, in my opinion. And I'm coloring them a little bit now. And these touches to the scratches are purely there to just add more flair. And in my opinion, the end quality came out really nicely. This still screams amateur work when all is said and done, but it doesn't matter because it's my work, and that is the entire point of art like this. This Brawl animation is a very large animation, and it's very ambitious for something even first. I mean, honestly, I should be probably making untextured models do backflips or something, or front flips, or somersaults, or just whatever to just even practice. But instead, I am jumping into the deep end of the pool and deciding why not go for like a 9-minute 3D animation that my computer probably can't even handle rendering right now. Because I have a very old computer, which I am trying to replace. Unfortunately, well, times are rough. All right. Right now, I am moving on to highlights, like around the box. The highlights will allow it to, well, it's just to give it the more stylized look that we see in things like texture painting and Blender, and a more cartoonish feel overall, or just again stylized look. That's the term for it, I think. I'm using a more lighter color to give it a more, well, just liner type feature, and it even adds to the depth a little bit, in my opinion. And I ended up liking the look of it a lot. I ended up adding it to the sides and the corners, and just basically anywhere that has a sharp turn. It made me all feel really nice, because it ended up adding so much to the model, and it's amazing that I even made the decision, because I almost didn't. I kind of wanted to keep it like that, but this was such a good idea to add those scratches and highlights and the lighter color to it. All right. Now I should be moving on to the final models. The two other models attached to it are, of course, the handles and the handle fixtures. And I'm just going to be using just a default texture for them. Just some metallic shaders just to make them look decent. And with that final touches, the simple metals and the texture painted box is complete. I want to thank you all for joining me, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.